The applause was thunderous. Not the polite, rehearsed clapping you hear at the beginning of most daytime talk shows. This was wild, unfiltered, eager, the kind that rattled camera rigs and made stagehands wince. Studio lights pulsed overhead. Like stage fire, the voiceover boomed. "Ladies and gentlemen, Jason Momoa." He stepped onto the stage in slow, grounded strides, larger than life, but somehow barefoot in spirit. His signature long hair was pulled back in a low, effortless knot. He wore a dark, loose-fitting linen shirt that barely disguised the power. Beneath it, and his grin wide, warm, grounding, was met with audience screams. Kelly Clarkson stood waiting, arms open like she was greeting an old friend. She wore bright coral and a smile to match. The moment they embraced, camera 2 panned tight, the queen of daytime television hugging the wild man of Hollywood. Everything about the moment screamed charm. But beneath the surface, the storm had already begun. "Jason," Kelly began, the words wrapped in Southern hospitality, "you look incredible, as always. How are you feeling today?" Jason's body eased into the chair, the one purposely built to look cozy beside hers. He nodded once. "I'm good. Glad to be here." But he didn't smile. Not fully. The applause faded, and a producer off stage gave the wrap-it-up hand signal. The fun part was over. Kelly glanced down at her note cards, already knowing where this was going. She didn't look up when she asked it. "So, let's talk about your new project. I hear it's something completely different, something personal." Jason blinked slowly. "Yeah, very personal." There was a pause. He waited to see if she would let him speak freely. She didn't. "Deals with what? Family? Identity?" "I've heard some talk." The audience hushed. Jason cleared his throat, shifting slightly. "Yeah, it's about roots, about what it means to belong somewhere, and how sometimes when you're caught between two worlds, you end up belonging nowhere." It was quiet, just the hum of stage lights and a low, anxious buzz from the control room. He had spoken from the chest. From memory, Kelly smiled. Then her tone shifted. "Well, speaking of identity," she said, eyebrows raised just enough to let you know she was about to cross a line. "There's been a lot of buzz around your connection to your heritage. You've been really open about your Hawaiian roots. Your father's native Hawaiian, right?" Jason's head tilted. The smile was gone. You could hear someone backstage mutter, "Oh no." Jason nodded carefully. "Yes, on my dad's side." Kelly leaned forward slightly, as if closeness made the question less invasive. "There's just been some chatter," she said, tones still light. "Online articles, you know, about how involved you are in cultural ceremonies. Some folks questioning, well, just wondering, if someone with mixed heritage can truly represent an indigenous culture." There it was, the first grenade, tossed. With a smile, Jason didn't flinch. But he didn't blink either. He turned to face her fully. "I'm sorry, what exactly are you asking me right now?" Her tone didn't change, but her shoulders did. She stiffened, just a little. "I'm not saying I agree with it," she said, "but I've seen discussions, especially in indigenous circles, about representation. And some of them are questioning my authenticity," he interrupted. Kelly hesitated. "I'm just asking how you respond to that kind of criticism." Jason's jaw flexed. "Criticism of what?" "My film work. No of your right to represent that culture." And that was the moment. A wave of silence swept the room. The crew froze. Even the teleprompter operator stopped scrolling. Jason leaned forward, eyes heavy, voice a register lower than before. "You're asking me to defend my blood on national television?" "No," Kelly said, voice cracking just slightly. "I'm inviting you to share your perspective." A woman in the front row gasped audibly. Another audience member whispered, "What is she doing?" Jason didn't raise his voice. He dropped it, grounding it in centuries of pain. "Kelly, my grandmother taught me hula before I could walk. I grew up eating lalo and chanting meal. With my cousins, I don't need to explain to you or anyone else what makes me Hawaiian." Kelly opened her mouth, then closed it. The producers behind the glass were scrambling. Camera 1 or 3. Cut to audience. Signal to commercial. Jason wasn't done. "And you on this stage asking that kind of question. That's not curiosity. That's a challenge." Kelly blinked. "Jason, no," he said, hand raised. "You brought me on here to talk about my art, my work. But instead, I'm being asked to validate my existence, my belonging." From the back, a stagehand's headset cracked with static. Someone whispered, "Do we cut?" But Kelly held her ground. "Representation matters," she said, sharper. "Now, people care who tells their stories." Jason narrowed his eyes. "You think I haven't carried the weight of my culture into every meeting, every audition, every scene?" She tried to soften. "That's not what I said, but that's what you meant." Kelly leaned back. "I'm just trying to have an honest conversation." Jason stood. The chair scraped loudly across the floor, metal shrieking against linoleum. "Then here's something honest," he said. "When you question my heritage, you're not just talking to me. You're talking to every mixed kid who's ever been told they're not enough of one thing to matter." Audience silent, motionless. You could hear someone crying softly in the second row. "Like, share, subscribe," Jason said, staring directly into the main camera. "Because clearly, that's all that matters here." Kelly looked stunned. "Wait, I grew up being told I was too brown for Hollywood and too white for the islands," he said. "So don't sit there and pretend that asking whether I'm Hawaiian enough is just some neutral talking point. It's not. It's violence disguised as curiosity." Kelly's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted her cue cards. "I wasn't trying to hurt you, but you did," Jason said, steady, "and you didn't even notice until the cameras caught it." Silence. Kelly swallowed hard. Her face fell, her posture deflated. "Can we start over?" Jason's gaze was quiet, cutting. "No," he said, "because what you asked, what you implied, you can't unsay that." He began to remove his mic. Slowly, deliberately. Reached out. "Please stay." But Jason's voice had dropped to a whisper. "You don't get to ask someone to prove their identity for ratings and then call it a conversation." The boom mic picked up a soft, stifled sob from the front row. A woman clutched her chest. A man near her shook his head in disbelief. Jason paused one last time at the edge of the stage. He looked directly into the camera again. "You want content?" he asked. "Here's some. The next time you sit across from someone with roots deeper than you'll ever understand, try asking about their story, not their legitimacy." He dropped the mic on the chair. Not thrown, not slammed, just placed, quiet. Final, he walked off stage. The camera lingered on Kelly's face. The brightness drained from it. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was thin and broken, I think. "I said something really wrong." The audience didn't move. There was no applause, no cut to commercial, just the weight of what had been said and what hadn't. The lights never dimmed, the cameras never cut. Jason Momoa had walked off the stage. His mic left like an abandoned confession in the seat he once occupied. But the silence he left behind wasn't just awkward, it was radioactive. The kind that hangs in the throat, waiting to explode. Kelly Clarkson sat frozen, her hand still outstretched from where she'd tried and failed to stop him. Her cue cards had scattered like fallen leaves, forgotten on the floor. Her smile, her armor, was gone. The audience didn't move. Not a single clap, not a whisper. Just the tension of 200 strangers trying to process whether they'd just witnessed a cultural reckoning or a live TV implosion. A voice crackled faintly in Kelly's earpiece. "Go to break." Inhaled, shaky, unready, and looked straight into the camera. "I want to say something." Someone backstage hissed, "We're not live anymore," cut her feed, but they weren't fast enough. Her voice was small, then bigger. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she said. To hear, the audience didn't respond. A single voice clear from the third row cut through the stillness like a blade. You wanted a reaction, not a conversation. Kelly looked up, her eyes locked with the woman who had spoken, a native Hawaiian community organizer flown in by producers for audience diversity. She wore a simple t-shirt that read, "We are not your content." You wanted him to justify his roots so your viewers could feel good about understanding both sides, the woman continued, rising to her feet. But you don't ask white guests if they're white enough. You don't ask them if they deserve to tell American stories. There it was. The room began to shift, physically, emotionally. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Heads turned, expressions changed. The air itself felt tighter. Kelly opened her mouth, but someone else had already stood. This time, it was a crew member, Mike, the lighting guy. He didn't speak often. He was the kind of guy who came in early, stayed late, never broke union rules. "I was adopted," he said, voice rough. "My mother was Mexican. My dad was white. And every time someone asks me what I am, it feels like being erased. So watching that just now, it wasn't a question. Kelly blinked. It was the first time anyone had ever spoken to her like that on her own set. She reached for a water bottle with a trembling hand, but missed it. A soft clatter. Then a new voice, low, measured. Jason Momoa's. He had come back not to sit, not to smile, but to finish what had been started. He walked in from stage left, no music, no lights, just the quiet thump of his boots on polished wood. He didn't take his seat again, or slower than before, sharper. "I left because I didn't come here to be dissected," he said. "But I came back because I realized something." Kelly sat upright, stunned. Jason looked out at the audience. "I realized that if I walk away, you're just left with her version of this story, and I'm not going to let that happen, even betrayed." "I never tried to rewrite your story," she said. Jason laughed, humorless. "You tried to own it, to frame it, to make it consumable. You asked me to put my culture on display like it was a costume." "I asked a hard question," she snapped, finally rising. "And I admitted maybe I phrased it wrong." "You didn't phrase it wrong," Jason said. "You framed it wrong, because this wasn't a conversation. This was a cross-examination." He stepped closer. "You came armed with anonymous blog posts, online chatter, and vague critiques from people you couldn't even name. And you expected me to just smile through it, to perform forgiveness on cue." Kelly's jaw tightened. "I didn't expect you to perform anything," she said. "I just didn't expect you to explode." Pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket. Handwritten, smudged. "My grandmother wrote this when I was 14, he said. "She gave it to me after I was bullied for not speaking Hawaiian fluently. She told me, 'You are not half anything. You are whole in everything that lives inside you.'" He unfolded the paper slowly, delicately. The audience was pin drop, silent. "She died 3 years ago, and every time I walk onto a set, I hear her voice in my head. Not yours, hers." He turned toward Kelly. "So don't ever ask me again if I'm Hawaiian enough." Kelly's lip quivered. "Said that earlier." "Without the walkout, you could have asked better questions," Jason replied. "Without the damage." She stepped toward him. "What do you want from me, Jason?" she asked. "A public apology, an admission that IF*** had up." He held her gaze. "I want you to stop pretending you're the victim of your own ignorance." The audience erupted. In laughter, not in applause, in something deeper. A mix of gasps, murmurs, sudden standing ovations from individuals who couldn't hold it in anymore. "I've interviewed hundreds of people. Never has anyone accused me of doing this." "Then maybe this is the first time someone told you the truth to your face." Silence. Then someone shouted from the back row, "Let him finish." Kelly recoiled. Jason stepped up onto the low-riser where the guests usually perform during musical segments, but there was no music now to the sound of reckoning. "I didn't come here to fight," he said. "I came here to celebrate a project that means something to me, but instead I had to defend my soul." Kelly's voice cracked. "That's not fair. What's not fair?" he said. She stood there, small, visibly shaken. "I've been through things too," she said. "I don't wear them like armor, but this isn't armor," Jason said, stepping down from the riser. "It's skin." And then he reached out, not to attack, not to threaten, but to offer her the paper his grandmother had written. She stared at it like it was burning. "Read it," he said. He turned again, and this time, when he walked off stage, nobody stopped him, not the crew, not the audience, not even Kelly, because this time the silence wasn't empty. The air in the studio hung dense and unmoving like breath held too long. Jason Momoa had walked off for the second time, but what he left behind wasn't just a stunned set, it was a scar. Kelly Clarkson remained standing in the spotlight, though it no longer felt like hers. Her mouth was slightly open. Her hand still halfway out, caught between reaching for Jason's note and shielding herself from the fallout. The crew didn't know what to do. The director leaned into the mic. "Kill the feed. We're not airing this," but it was too late. Within seconds of Jason leaving the stage, someone in the audience had already uploaded the footage. The moment he said, "This isn't armor, it's skin," was clipped, posted, and had over 2 million views in under 20 minutes. And it was just beginning. Green room. Moments later, Jason sat alone on a couch made for comfort, but clearly bought for aesthetics. The note from his grandmother rested gently on the table beside a half-drunk glass of water. His hands were clenched on his knees, knuckles white. He wasn't shaking, but he wasn't still either. He was humming under his breath. A low chant, Hawaiian, almost inaudible. A young black production assistant entered cautiously. "Jason," he didn't answer. "I just wanted to say." She hesitated. "I saw what happened, and I'm sorry for real." He finally looked at her, his face unreadable. "I'm not the one you should be apologizing to," he said. "This happens to people like us every day. I just happen to have a camera on me when it does." She nodded, tears pricking her eyes. "Still, thank you for not letting it slide." He didn't respond. He didn't need to. NT Studio. Back on Sechikili's face was pale now. The set lights hadn't been dimmed. They just felt harsher, like they were suddenly meant for interrogation. A producer rushed on stage and whispered frantically in her ear. "Social media's exploding. Hashtag Jason Momoa is trending. Hashtag boycott Kelly is right behind it." Kelly shook her head, dazed. "I didn't mean it that way." The producer looked at her, like she was already too far underwater to save. "You need to make a statement about what? That I asked a question." The producer's eyes widened. "No. That you dismissed an entire culture on live TV." Before she could answer, the floor manager's headset crackled again. "We've got 3 members of the audience demanding to speak on camera." "Decline it," Kelly muttered, wiping her face. "This isn't a town hall." "Maybe it should be," the floor manager said under his breath. "Too low for her to catch. Int control room. SIMULTA90 Waitha." Video team was in freefall. 2 editors were scrubbing through live footage, trying to bleep anything too dangerous. Third had just discovered the YouTube repost was now on CNN, MSNBC, and the Shade Room. Someone read aloud, "Jason Momoa walks off Kelly Clarkson Show. After she questions his Hawaiian identity, America watches a reckoning unfold in real time." The director didn't even look up. Let it burn. Int Studio moments, LATR Kelly finally turned back to the camera. She smoothed her skirt, took a breath, and looked into the lens as if it were a confessional booth. "I want to clarify something," but she was interrupted. From the side of the stage, an audience member called out, "No, you had your turn." Heads whipped around, cameras zoomed in. A young Pacific Islander woman in her 20s stood. Her face was radiant with fury. "You're not the victim here," she said, stepping forward. Security looked uncertain. Kelly tried to speak.
I
"Didn't claim to be you, didn't have to," the woman fired back. "You just made it about you, about your show, your discomfort." Meanwhile, Jason had to defend his bloodline to justify sitting on your couch. Kelly's voice faltered. "I didn't question his bloodline. I asked whether he was Hawaiian enough for your standards," the woman snapped. And every person of mixed identity watching this show knew exactly what you meant. Kelly folded her arms. "I asked a question about representation. That's a fair conversation." The woman's eyes narrowed. "Is it fair when it's always us being asked to prove ourselves? Never you?" Another audience member stood, then another. A man in his 60s raised a fist. "I'm Japanese American. I've spent my entire life being told I don't count, that I'm not Asian enough, that I'm too American, that I don't belong anywhere. Watching you do that to Jason broke something in me." Kelly looked around, surrounded by standing witnesses. "I didn't mean to break anything." The young woman stepped forward again, voice trembling but strong. Then, "Maybe it's time you listen, instead of talking." Silence again, but this time it felt holy. .int. Green, ROOMCONTNUOS Jason sat, watching the live feed on a production monitor. His eyes were red, but not from crying, from holding it back. From years of swallowing this exact kind of hurt, in private another assistant approached, breathless. "There's media outside. Cameras, reporters. Everyone wants a statement." Jason didn't move. "They want to know if you'll press charges. They're calling it identity-based harassment." He looked up, finally. "It's not about me anymore." The assistant frowned. "Then who's it about?" Jason stood, towering, calm. "It's about the next kid who gets told they don't look enough like where they came from." Int Studio minutes, LATR suddenly. The back door of the stage creaked open, and Jason Momoa stepped back in. But this time, he wasn't alone. With him was an elder kupuna from Hawaii, silver hair, strong stance, dignified. She wore a lace of deep purple and green. Her face was unreadable. Her presence, unmistakable. Kelly's eyes widened. Jason stood behind her like a wall. "She flew in to surprise me," he said. "She's a cultural ambassador." And my auntie gasps. Kelly instinctively turned to greet her, but the elder didn't move forward. She simply lifted her hand and said, in perfect English, but with the gravity of centuries, "We do not debate. Our existence, not for applause, not for understanding, and certainly not for daytime television." The studio dropped into reverent silence. Kelly swallowed hard. "I didn't mean you meant to extract," the elder interrupted, "to mine sacred things for performance. You just didn't expect resistance." Jason stepped forward now, voice clear. Kelly's voice cracked. "I thought we were on the same side." "You thought wrong," Jason said, "because you can't be on our side if you question whether we belong on our own side." More murmurs, more audience tears. The kupuna stepped forward, finally. She handed Jason a small carved stone. "This is for grounding," she said. "You don't need to be strong for them, just rooted in who you are." Jason closed his eyes, nodding, overwhelmed. Then the kupuna turned to Kelly. "Sometimes," she said gently, "the most sacred thing you can do is shut up and listen." Kelly sat down slowly, eyes glossy. She nodded. Just once, and for the first time in the entire segment, she didn't respond. The studio lights dimmed, leaving a soft glow around the trio standing center stage, Jason Momoa, the kupuna elder, and Kelly Clarkson. For the first time in the entire broadcast, the air felt less like a battleground and more like sacred ground. Towering figures seemed smaller now, not diminished, but humanized by the weight he'd carried and shared so openly. Kelly sat quietly. Her eyes no longer defensive, but reflective. The fire of confrontation softened into the slow, painful warmth of understanding. Int. Studio A Moment of Seal and Silence wasn't empty. It was full of everything unspoken for decades, full of stories crushed under the heel of authenticity tests, cultural gatekeeping, and the violent erasure of mixed identities. The kupuna's steady gaze scanned the room, then softened as she addressed the camera, and through it, the millions watching at home. "Our stories are not commodities," she said with measured reverence. "They are living legacies. They cannot be mined, packaged, or questioned for entertainment." Jason took a slow breath, then faced Kelly with a raw honesty that cut through the studio's walls like sunlight through stained glass. "I know you didn't come here to harm me," he said, "but good intentions don't erase the wounds caused." Kelly's voice trembled as she replied, "I'm sorry, truly. I never wanted to make you feel less than who you are." Jason nodded, a slight crack in his formidable presence. "What matters now is what we do with this moment." He turned to the camera. "To everyone watching, this isn't just my story. It's the story of countless people whose identities are questioned, whose roots are doubted, whose belonging is challenged every day." A deep pause. The camera zoomed in on his eyes, steady, resolute, and blazing with the quiet power of survival. Cut. 2. Audience RICTONS faces filled with tears, nods of solidarity, whispered agreements. One young woman wiped her cheeks and whispered, "He's speaking for me." An older man clenched his fist, murmuring, "This is real." The studio, once a place of scripted pleasantries, had transformed into a space of collective reckoning. Int. Studio Final MOMHS. Jason turned back to Kelly, his voice softer now. "This project, this story, I came to share. It's about healing, about reclaiming what was taken, about belonging without apology." Kelly reached out, hesitated, then touched his hand lightly. "Thank you," she said, "for showing me what I didn't see." Jason smiled, a genuine, warm smile that held no bitterness, only hope. "We all have to learn," he said, "and sometimes that means listening when it's hard." The kupuna stepped forward, placing a gentle hand on Jason's shoulder. "As long as we remember where we come from, we will always rise." The camera pulls BACCA, the three stand together, a symbol of reconciliation, resilience, and truth. The moment feels monumental yet intimate, a rare vulnerability broadcast live. If this story moved you, if you believe in honest conversations that uplift rather than divide, like, share, and subscribe. Join us in building a world where every voice is heard, every identity respected. Stay tuned. The next chapter is just beginning.